Welcome to the first episode of Things Move Fast, the podcast all about innovation, curiosity, and the people driving progress. In this first episode, I'm joined by technologist Matt Stagg, and we're going to have some really exciting conversations today all about technology and innovation. Anyway, with that in mind, roll the thing. Matt, so, hey, thanks very much for coming down today.
Oh, thanks for having me. This is great. First episode.
Yeah.
I'm very honoured.
Thanks. I suppose we sort of go way back to, I think the first time we met was probably back in 2017 when I used to work for broadcast publication. And I think myself and Jake Bickerton, shout out to Jake, were running the broadcast sports tech forum. And we did it, I think it was at Century Club. And I think that was the first time sort of I'd met you, and I think it was at that time where you were working a lot with E, especially around 5G. And I just think from then, Matt, I've always seen you in the circuit, always leading the way in innovation. And I think for myself, what better guest to have for our first episode? So yeah, thanks again. Thanks very much. I suppose I want to keep this as conversational as possible. Cool. And I think we were talking the other day about podcasts that we're listening to and how we're trying to be different. But there was this one really cool podcast I have been listening to called Founders. It's the Founders podcast, and it's run by David Senra. And there was this really cool sort of quote in that, which I thought, hey, maybe I can start today's podcast about that. And it was all about focus and this idea of focus and how sort of the best leaders or the best founders or the best innovators always have a very, very clear focus on what they're doing. And I thought, do you know what? In this world of technology and how things are shifting, and maybe even for the people that work for brands that have been around for a long time, like legacy brands, focus is so important. It's not even just important to someone that's, I guess, starting a business from scratch. It's more important for people that are working for existing businesses and how to push it forward. So the quote was, if you lose your focus, you lose greatness. And I thought, actually, gosh, that's really hit me. And it's such a simple term, but I suppose for you, Matt, that you've worked at such big organizations like E, BT Sport, TNT, Warner Brothers Discovery. How important is focus to you and the sort of, I guess, teams and stuff that you've been working with and innovation you've been driving?
That's a really good one. And it was, I think innovation is, strangely, you look at it and you say, well, you have focus on the technology and you understand how it is. It's so easy to lose focus on the business and the end product because some of the new technology comes out and it's so cool. Yeah. And you're like, this is, especially when you're wrapping it in sport, which most, if you're a sports fan like we are, then you'll go, this is the next big thing. But part of my focus was to look at, we've got great technology here. We've got some fantastic technical minds and creative minds that can wrap something really good, a really end story. However, at the end of it, you've got to make money, and that might be intangible. That could be if you're in a broadcaster, it could be acquisition, retention, and you've got the intangible ones like brand awareness and the PR around innovating. But there has to be a return on investment, and you get dazzled by the light of the flashing lights of innovation, and then you have to say, well, hold on, how much does this cost? What's the market? And we all like it, but we're not the end customer. In fact, if you work for a broadcaster, you go, well, if this rolls out, I get it for free because we get our subscription. And I think one of the probably the best case of that is when we did a lot of work around extended reality. We had lots of partners in. It was it was an industry-funded, government-funded by DCMS, innovation challenge, and we brought on, and it was really around what I see as one of the coolest things that could happen in sport, and that was you have a pair of normal-looking glasses, and then you're doing filming in a volumetric capture. We had boxers came down, and we filmed them. put the glasses on, you walked around in real time around the boxers. You could make them small, you could put them there, they could be life size. And that was so cool that everybody was, we're going to win awards for this. And it was, but we're never going to be able to put this out in the market. And it was my job. It was too expensive. There weren't enough devices. It's, especially being an innovator myself, it's quite harsh to sit everyone down and go, we've looked at this. But part of doing pilots, doing innovation is to work out the whole thing, not the fun bits. It's the spreadsheets to say, what does it cost, that kind of thing. So I think that is an innovation. Losing your focus is losing the end product. Especially
when it's one of those things where, like you said, you can get so lost in the call. And I think tech now, especially with how fast things have moved, that is so, it's so easy to do that. And I think there's quite a lot of innovation that's coming out that the actual practicalities of it probably just aren't really there. But to a select few, it might be good. Maybe we can talk a bit about spatial computing and how that maybe didn't really work for Apple. But again, the technology is really cool. But maybe the time as which they had promoted it and started shipping that product out probably wasn't the right time. But actually, you mentioned something there about wearables just then and for that innovation. And it's so funny how something that maybe you're working on before, but actually how relevant that is now and how technology has sort of moved on, and how those sort of reality, how that sort of thing is actually more likely to happen in the current market. And I wouldn't mind actually jumping back into that a bit later, but actually maybe a bit more about yourself really and your sort of love of technology. Because I generally think that, and this might sound really silly, but I think people have to be really passionate about what they do. And I think that especially in industries like media entertainment, especially in sport, that passion that you have is the thing ultimately that's going to drive that innovation. It's going to drive those ideas because you care about it so much. For you, right? You've been in sports and you've been in media entertainment, I guess we can say that, but mainly in the sports space for quite a long time. Like, I'm always really curious to find out what got people into it in the first place. Did you see something out there in sports where you saw like, hey, look, technology and sports, I really see it colliding right now, and I want to be part of this? What was that for you? It was, but it was completely accidental in terms of my journey into it. Right, okay. Because it was actually, it took the industry, weren't expecting it. And that was when 4G was launched in terms of, because I was head of media and entertainment, looking at everything that might happen on a phone. I've been in there since the WAP days. But there's not many people alive who will remember that. R.I.P. And so we launched 4G. You had bandwidth, but it was a perfect storm really, because Apple had just launched the iPhone with 4G, and EU were one of their partners. There was the rise of short form content. People were starting to look at that. So the screens were right. The technology in terms of delivery was right. And then you had iPlayer coming on and onto the phones. And then sport was just absolute nightmare. It hit us. And mobile phones and mobile technology is really... breaks if you have lots of people looking at the same time. You build a mobile network for, you do a forecast plan, you see technology rising, you could see, the rise in video streaming. And then all of a sudden we realized that was a dominant traffic. And as just a comms company, we built a video distribution network that used to be for web browsing. Okay. And it was like, what does this mean? And then on the flip side of that, you had content providers that had no idea how a mobile network, mobile phones work. So increasingly, everybody was innovating in the silo to make video better. And some of that innovation was having, a proper negative impact. It's a bit technical, but it is a good example of
streaming companies were putting DRM and encryption in, as you do, and it's part of your IP. Mobile operators were trying to manipulate and transcode to be able to work on the mobile network. But then all of a sudden, you couldn't see anything, and it, a couple of times it broke. And I think it worked. So one of the ideas I had, and I do really like getting people from different companies involved, and media and entertainment is that. So I spoke with a few people and I said, nobody knows what they're doing. Everyone's breaking stuff and we all have the same customer. Just wants to watch something on his phone when he's on the bus, especially sport because it's live. And so I co-founded something we called the Mobile Video Alliance.
Oh, okay.
And got different people who knew different people. And then we had a launch. And the first day we got people in, we had all of the UK operators, mobile operators, and said, this is not a way of sharing ideas that might have a potential for a commercial impact. It's understanding how this technology works. Then we had YouTube, Netflix, and it's the first time it had been done globally, and it was a real surprise that everybody wanted to be there, all the competitors.
I was going to say, because I believe, and I think especially in our company and Digital Frontier, we talk a lot about innovation doesn't live in the silos, and it's so funny how most innovation does get created in silos. So like, what was that like then for you when you set up that particular sort of cohorting group? Was there pushback at the beginning from these other organizations, or were people like, no, we need to solve these problems and we need to solve them fast? Yeah,
it was. I thought it was going to be a struggle, potentially being EE, to get everybody else in. It's just over the years I've built up a rapport with people who do the same thing. We go to the same conferences, and just like the tech. And then I was, okay, or Netflix going to want to be in the same room as YouTube or
Amazon
BBC
or something like that.
Want to be in the same room, and everyone did. We put on quite a big spread, and it was I mean, anyone goes anywhere for free beer. In fact, I'd come to quite a lot of your things.
Thanks, thank you.
And that was great, and it was just, there were so many simple things. In the first one, we sat down, and all there, everybody quite excited, and the digital TV group, I said, I can't run this because I've got an actual job, but I don't mind chairing it. And they said, this is just the sort of thing we want. So they took it in-house as the Mobile Video Alliance.
As like an initiative for them.
Yeah, because they do everything like that around TV. And obviously that was a next step. And sat down and people were saying, oh, we should do this. And it was quite detailed. And I said, do you know what we should do first is we should give each other our operations telephone number. So if your feed from BBC iPlayer goes down because it was early stages, you can call our guys and say, this isn't working on your network. If we had a network problem, maybe with the interconnect, we could phone the operations at BBC and said, you don't have a problem with iPlayer, we have a problem. Because you get people phone up, and we're the front line from a mobile operator. No one phones up someone from the BBC and says, my phone's not working. So it was, I guess it was kind of selfish that we could let our customers go, no, it's not a network problem. And it could have been YouTube or any of those. Yeah. So that worked really well. And then we started to look at what's the best way of delivering it. Let's look at each other's new technologies, and worked really well. Yeah.
And I suppose, like, when did you start that one up? That alliance? How long ago was that now?
Must have been 2014.
Perhaps.
A long time ago.
So 2014. So fast forward now, like we're here now, and things have changed a lot since then, and the rate of technology has moved so quickly. Sports changed a lot, right? Sports broadcasting has changed a lot, I think, from there. And I think that, sort of setting, you guys were working, setting the scene. Like you said, like the iPhone had just like sort of come out. Yeah. Streaming was becoming a sort of soon to be staple, I guess, for the consumer. It is now. It's a thing that, I mean, God, I'm at home. I watch most of the stuff either on my phone or on my tablet if I don't get a chance to watch it there. Like, where do you even see this stuff going now? Because I suppose I don't want you to talk too much about like, hey, cool, what's happened in the past, because I think you really set the foundations along with other people as well. But where do you see things going? Have we hit that pinnacle of like sports distribution? You think maybe on the distribution side first? Like, do you think we've hit that?
Not at all. I think it used to be, okay, make it work on someone's phone. They want to watch the live stream, and to a certain extent, at the time, if you're a sports fan, you want to be in the stadium. If you can't be in the stadium, you want to be in front of a big screen with your friends. It's live. If you can't do that, then you'll watch it any way you can. Yeah. But that is a real waste of the new technology. And that's why we've seen there's so much more you can do with an interactive platform. And the key, I think, at the moment is the amount of not just footage, but data and stats and everything you get. The key, and this is where we're going to see, and when we'll come on to AI and that, and that has a great place in this, but take a step back and just look at, is that personalization aspect. Everybody is different. You still, and a broadcaster needs to keep everybody happy. You're always, everybody start, and we're going to talk about Gen Z and millennials. How do we bring them along? And then it's okay, you cannot just focus there. You need focus, and then you need to look at how we enable people to interact with sport, how they want to. And then you're going to have, me and you want to sit down and watch it, and all of the directors and the producers are fantastic at what they do, and that's all I want to see. But others, things are changing.
Yeah, but for others, it probably isn't. I don't know if that's a good segue actually for us to talk a bit about about a recent article that you sort of wrote about Gen Z and fan engagement. I mean, I think fan engagement in terms of the industry circuit as a topic is something that's been, as far as where I've been working in like sports and media, a topic that's been talked about so much and had so much work, consultancies getting involved to really understand user behavior, and there's all the whole sort of death of linear TV, and young people don't have attention spans. But actually, I was reading your article, and you actually said, "Hey, hold up a second. Like, who said that young people don't have long attention spans?"
Old people.
Yeah, old people, and that's what. And honestly, I was reading the article. I was like, "Yes, Matt. Yes, that's great." But why don't we talk about that now? Because like, it actually made me think. Because I think it's this continuous rhetoric or whatever from either mainstream media or media in general. That I've just had my little one's 8 months old now. So has not really on the digital time just yet. But yeah, I'm reading all this stuff about the new children coming in now, Gen Alpha or even Gen Z. Yeah, they don't have the attention span. They only be wanting to watch like TikTok. I always thought it was like such a simplistic way of viewing those sort of habits. But yeah, in that article you kind of challenged that norm. Do you want to jump on that a bit more?
Well, it's also a way people lazily bat it off, kick the can down the road. Yeah. That's really tough. But yeah, the first thing is that total myth about the attention span. I've got 3 boys between 17 and 12, and they do lots of stuff for a long time. They will binge watch 3 seasons. One of mine started watching Walking Dead. Yeah. Within like a week, he was on season 8, and I was like, well, I'm not sure how you had the time, but fair enough. They have a longer attention span, but they are forensic in their filter.
Interesting that, yeah.
They'll have a great attention span for stuff if it's relevant, engaging. They can use other formats. So, we talk about TikTok and, okay, all they want to do is watch TikTok. No, what they might want to do is watch a TikTok from their favorite sports star, because they're not necessarily just teams and leagues. They're people, emotions, and moments moments in time.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And I think that's one of the key. And again, it goes back to a certain arrogance, and I take myself, although I do try and take it back, and maybe it was just a hope. Broadcasters just went, everyone will just grow into sport. They'll grow into how we do it. At one moment in time, they'll all get to 20 and say, actually, I don't need my phone now, I'll sit down and watch the telly. And that's not going to happen. That is not how people want to engage in it. They want to have influence, and they want to have a social aspect. They want to follow what the person, the team, and it genuinely needs to be relevant, and someone needs to ask them what they want.
Yeah, so I mean, I suppose, Matt, here's one thing, being there in the businesses, you've worked for some really large legacy broadcasters and brands. I suppose there's a bit of I suppose, pulling the curtain, drawing the curtain, and just asking this question of how much are the broadcasters really sitting down and discussing the audience and putting the audience first, and how they're going to be, keeping that audience in 3, 4, 5 years time? Is that innovation number one priority for them? I've got another question on this, but maybe you can start with that one first.
I think it's catching up. But if we have a look traditionally, what happened when you were looking, obviously, at rights and distribution models and production models, you had a TV screen and you had a limited place. So you had stats and you had commentary and you had replays and you had UVS technicians. But your market was, if you think you've got maybe a casual fan here, you've got a super fan here, and then you've got everybody else. So it's almost like a bell curve.
Right, so here's the bell curve now, right? So we've got those both sides.
So you're looking at what the most people would want to watch on the TV. So super fans and were underserved, casual fans were overserved. And you can take this when you look at, Formula One and things like that, the amount of stuff. So, in fact, if we take Formula One as an example, you may have a proper sit-back armchair viewer of the race. I am. I don't need to know anything. I just want to know who's in front and where everybody else is. Then you go to a super fan, and you've got someone who wants to know the tyre pressures as you go around. Now, you obviously cater for the people in the middle. To get the maximum return on investment for everything you pay for, the production, the rights. Now with new technology we're able to widen that window, and we can actually start to, and it comes back to personalisation for specific segments of people, because with AI, you've got an extra few thousand employees that can come on.
Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. That sort of analytics into the user habits and what they're doing can be looked at so much quicker.
You
can throw enough stuff out at it, right?
You've got an unlimited supply of interns. And not only, interestingly, not only does that, you might have, NBA do this fantastically. So you can get personalization. You could follow a player, you could follow a play, you could have total, almost a bespoke for you experience with NBA. The reason they can do that is because of AI. You cannot, again, it goes back to, you have to address the mass, middle of the bell curve fans with the people you've got, the creatives you've got. What you don't want someone to do is have someone who's highly creative sat in a room and making up a total bespoke show or engagement or set of clips for 10,000 people, because you need them to do that. However, if you use AI and automation and machine learning all wrapped up into one, those people not only don't have to do that, and you can address those segments for free, is they're freed up to do what they've trained to do, and they're not having to do manual tasks, so logging and everything like that. Is they can go in and actually use their creative innovation, if you like, brings more people into the sport, you know.
I suppose I really like your analogy there with the bell curve and, you know, the sort of the casual, the super fan and all that bit in the middle. Like, I suppose from innovation, from that point of view, like, who's doing it really well right now? Like for you, it doesn't doesn't have to be a broadcaster per se. It could even just be like the rights holders who like sort of are pushing out the content. Where are you seeing like real cool innovation for the fan?
I have to say, every day it's NBA.
Really, it's not the first time I've heard. It's not the first time I've heard this. And people mention the NBA for even how they sort of like are looking into things like Web3 as well. Like, why is that from like your understanding of the NBA? What do they do so differently from everyone else?
They got some top people there.
Okay,
they got some top people. They understand their fans. They have a massive suite of people doing analysis of behavior. And I think that is something that people are getting into, but I don't think a lot of places are able, maybe not even it's not just a will to not do it, if you like, or a lack of will to do it, I should say, but it's having the people and the scope to be able to do that. You know, NBA has that. It attracts the best people, and it's really, really open to partnership. So the stuff they've done with WSC Sport and Microsoft around some of that hyper personalization is what you should be doing. You know, it's all of this advanced technology. You don't want, if you're a sports broadcaster, to bring in a chief AI officer.
You're saying no.
No, you need someone to come up with the ideas. So you need I always call it a creative innovator, if you like. You need people who understand how technology can be used.
More of a generalist almost, right?
But they don't have to. They understand. Okay, we know AI can do this. We'd like it to do this. Let's go and speak to the expert. We don't need to recruit a load of people to do it. People have already done that, and I think that openness to work with partners, is really key if you want to be able. And broadcasters are getting better at it. Many leagues, so La Liga's very good at innovating and understanding their fans. But the key piece is having the people to be able to analyze that. You know, you can't just have, here's all the data we've got on all of our matches, all of our broadcasts, here's all of our people, and then just put it in and expect something like a rubbish in, rubbish out. So there is a lot of tailoring that needs to be done to get some of the large language models to work. And I think that's where I'd like my kids to start working.
Really?
That's where the money is, yeah.
Well, I guess you maybe answered it, but I'll just ask you the question anyway. Disruption, disruption science is a word that gets used all the time, but I suppose it's another way of looking at it is like challengers, right, to the status quo. And do you see like room still for someone to come in and disrupt? Do you still think that if there is a founder out there that is looking at creating the technology, that there is still opportunity? Or do you think that the broadcasters, the rights holders, they're already looking into these things now more than ever? Do you know what I mean? Maybe back in 2014, like when you were sort of putting those things together, you were like, hey, look guys, there's a problem here, we need to solve it. Do you think that broadcasters and rights holders now know where they need to be focusing on, or do you still think that innovation's never always at the top priority?
It's one of those, we don't know what we don't know, but we certainly as an industry know we don't know everything. That was a really weird quote, but I'll probably say it was someone else's.
Yeah.
Well. But yes, 100%. You look at the incredible minds coming out of university from, we've gone beyond digital natives, but that's what we used to call them. Yeah. They're coming out, they know everything about gaming engines. They can all code from birth. And they spot the next big thing because they live it and they know it. We won't be able to do what they do because we don't think like they think. They're closer. So all of this stuff we've talked about next generation innovation, fan innovation, and they will without a doubt be working on things and that we don't know about. And the other piece is look at the tools they've got. around, AI, generative AI, or Ingenic. So a lot of that, what would have traditionally been, we need to scale up, so we need software engineers, you still need them. Or we need somebody who needs to rack servers, and we need to get a partner we need a data center, all cloud, all platform as a service, software as a service. So without a doubt, someone will come in with something that we haven't seen, and absolutely no way will we have been thinking about it now.
Really?
It'll come in and you'll go, I mean, it was a really simple thing came out of COVID, and we worked with a company, was Watch Together.
Oh yeah,
and sometimes circumstance.
Yeah. So, Scenic. I can't remember.
Yeah, Scenic.
Yeah, Scenic.
And they're really, really great guys and doing really well. And that was okay. We were looking at it before, but you come to a place and say, sports was coming back in. They were playing behind closed doors. No one could meet. People were having FaceTime while they were watching it, and then you had all of the delays. So someone was shouting about a goal that their mate hadn't seen, and he gets annoyed, and then he turns it off. So the big thing was having this, zero latency, real time. So you shouted at the same time. And whilst that was a good idea, would never have had the impact as it did because of COVID and the timing. So some things happen, and we've talked about COVID before. In terms of remote production,
I mean, it was the biggest one.
I mean, there was we probably made, and because it was being talked about and it was on there, and there were fantastic and still are fantastic reasons to do it. But when you have to do something, you do it quicker. I would say in 3 months, we probably made 3 years.
I mean, it's crazy. I actually remember, I think it was like 2018, and we'd done our first, back when I was at Broadcast, the Innovation Forum over at BT Studios in where was it based again? In
Stratford.
In Stratford, yeah. And I just remember that there was literally a section about remote production and how it was kind of being used in like lower league type stuff. And everyone was like, the thing is though, it's just not, we're not going to see this for a long time. And obviously that was 2019, late, I think it was November 2019 that happened. And then obviously the pandemic, like 4 or 5 months later, then wow, and it just showed that the technology was already there. It was more about the adoption from the businesses, right? And it does mean structural changes and shifts to a business. And maybe sometimes that's the hardest thing for a business to think of.
I mean, it's always difficult, and we'll come back to this for big companies to big broadcasters to invest in innovation. You have to do it, but some of them, and this is probably going back to what I said about understanding whether something that's really, really cool is going to be viable. Now you need somehow to get to that decision really quickly, because there's a lot. You could talk about, we've had discussions, in the boardroom at broadcasters where we've said, okay, we need some money for this. We want to do a trial on X, Y, and Z. And someone was like, we've got to paint the studio. There are things, there's so many competing, factors. We need a new editing suite, or we've just brought on some new talent and we actually need to be able to pay them more. And rights for cycling are coming up next year. So it's difficult. And I think that's where you need innovation and technology to work with creative. So everybody's on board from the start. They'll be able to see a lot more value or non-value in your technology, because they're going to be the ones that are going to be using it in some way or another.
100%.
And they go, well, look, and then you see it now as kind of an unspoken tension, I'd say, between engineering and creatives, because a lot of them don't want more tools. They want to do what they want. And then we're giving them, from a technical community, loads of tools, loads of really good tools. Here's what you can do. You can move this bit from here for here, but I don't want that. Automation is great, but overload creatives with tools and you get pushback.
Yeah.
You need the stuff that you all go into, including the bit that we talked about before, is make sure you've asked someone whether they'd use it.
Whether they actually use it. I mean, just there, sort of, this is a good segue into sort of talent and people coming in. I mean, we are probably seeing ourselves in an age now reminiscent to like the .com boom, right? You know, where people were out there creating amazing and cool things. And, you know, now I think more than ever, the entry level to make cool shit is so much just, it's so low now. It's so easy to do it. And I like to think that we're going to be entering this age where, I suppose when I was asked the question about do we see challenger brands and people coming disrupting some of these legacy sort of businesses, you know, we're seeing it already, right? Yeah. But what does that lead then for talent? Because obviously these are, you know, the sort of organizations you've worked for, some of these rights holders we've mentioned, like things like the NBA, like we obviously want the talent to be going in there. Are you seeing that at the moment from your experience? Are we seeing enough of, specifically in sports and broadcasting, are we seeing not just people going in, but actually the talent coming in?
Well, we're having, I guess, we're entering a really difficult period. So I work with the World Skills Cafe, addressing the skills gap in broadcasting, in media and entertainment. We have a lot of very clever people coming up to retirement age who naturally we need them because we got a load of legacy stuff in and they're very, very clever and good at what they're doing. But naturally don't really want to learn really, really new stuff. Like I've got 2 years. I can do this for 2 years. Not everyone, and some people are very keen. And it's not as cool for the younger generation to go, oh, I might work in a broadcaster, I might go and work for sport, I like sport, but actually I might go and work for Apple, or I might go and work for YouTube, or I might, you know, do a small production for some content influencers. All of that is competing, and people don't see media and entertainment as cool as it used to be. They don't view it because it means nothing to them. They don't, like, if you said years ago you'd go in as an intern to a company, so that could be let's go to Sky. You'd pay them to be a runner back in the day. You know,
I've heard
and
the
that
stories,
was the way you go up. But try and get a runner straight out of university as their primary job, unless they wanted to work in a big broadcaster, because it doesn't mean they're just another one, and perhaps their favorite channel isn't that, you know, it's YouTube, and they see lots of people and they're like, well, that's not really cool because everybody doesn't sit around and watch it. And so I think we really need to look at the language we use, that we need to go and we need to talk to universities because we need them more than they need us.
And that's you know, someone that went to university, I don't think I ever really had that, especially when I was studying. There was never really business coming in. I think if that's the case, then I guess we really need to do it. I suppose another question is, what about like acquisition from other industries? So for example, when virtual studios became a really big thing, there was so much like poaching from the gaming industry. Do you probably see a bit more of that? Do you think that there is not necessarily people coming in straight from university, but do you think the broadcast industry or the sports industry in general will just be trying to nab people from the tech sector, or are they going to hit the same problem where maybe it's not as a sexy sort of industry to move into?
Well, they certainly need to be. You know, and I don't believe that's been it's paid lip service occasionally, but you know, you've got to put your hand in your pocket. You know, do you retrain existing staff, or do you pay someone who's a superstar to come in and to be able to do it? But the gaming engines, I was given a talk to some university students in their first year in media studies, and I was talking about things like XR, and you know, I'd taken a demo in, and I could see they weren't that interested. They were losing. They weren't interested in broadcasting.
How come? Was it just generally because of other things?
Because I went in as BT Sport, and that didn't really resonate with them, you know. And it was all came from, oh, they're from sport, they're over the road. That's why they've come in. And actually, as soon as I started to say, you know, our skills gap and where we're going to really need people like you is because we need people who understand Unity. And, you know, and gaming engines, and all of a sudden loads of them went up, and I said, you it's not just what you think it used to be, and even if it is, we need people like you to come in and change it. So without a doubt, we need to be getting those younger minds in who understand, and it goes back again and again, understand what people of their generation really want.
Actually want. Well, you know what? That's a really good way now to move into the bit that we haven't talked enough about. Maybe we can dive into the tech, the actual tech that's coming in now. Like, we've just said, we need new fresh blood coming into the sector who really understands sort of like innovation and just actually, like you said, what people want and what they want to digest, etc. There was this time, again, I'll refer back to a conference that we did actually years ago together, and you had a really cool video, and it was all about 5G, right? And it was all about the possibilities that sort of can open up. And I just remember there was this one point, and I think it was an BT Sport video, where it was you put on the wearables, and someone was just at a park, and they were in this park and put on the glasses, and they were able to watch their football match in this empty sports ground. Like, I loved that, just that particular scene. I loved it so much, and I thought, when are we going to get to that stage? And you know, like, it just reminded me of something like Star Trek, you know, the sort of hologram room that people go into. But like, are we close to that? What's stopping us at the moment?
So the technology can do it.
Okay.
So you could now, and many stadiums do it, and there's some, you know, absolutely people are great at doing it. And you put your camera up at half time, and you can see, you know, lots of interesting, really engaging, fun things because it's an overlay on the real world. So
like real time stats and
or you know, like we had a massive Red Devil that came out of the stadium on that film. You know, where's your seat? There's all. I mean, stadium technology is another area I work in, and I think that's great. And this is now it will happen. As I said, you can do it now, but it has to be through your phone.
Yeah. Okay.
So the big thing, and I want it to happen. It's always been, you know, just that whole holographic piece, but the overlay, and you know, we talk about. The reason XR and AR, so you have normal looking glasses or as normal as possible, and then you get digital overlays in the real world. Sport, wearing a headset at home is it doesn't work. No. What you and the idea was great, but actually what you're seeing, the value that people are trying to push is you put it on and you sit in a seat in a stadium. Well, the worst thing about stadium experience is because you're sat in that seat, and they're normally shit seats where I'm sat. So actually, you know, you need to, and it's a social experience. You can't have a social experience with a headset. So that's where it is. The problem is always with devices, and coming from a mobile background, I understand that, you know, better than anyone. The industry for things like taking up new technologies that need a device is by the device manufacturers. A broadcaster or a stadium or a league or a club could not invest in that technology which is there to do these really cool things because there aren't enough people that are able to take advantage of that. And that will come along, and it won't be driven by sport. It will be driven by other things like retail when you're walking along. You know, Google Maps, anything that's a heads-up display, you know, other verticals can affect it, like healthcare and education. But sport specifically will be able to take that and provide best experience of wearing those glasses I think you can get.
So Matt, we've seen sort of wearable tech coming back into fashion now. I think Meta investing heavily into the sort of the glasses. We've seen what's happened with, say, spatial commuting with Apple and Apple Vision Pro and how it didn't work. Like, where do you see wearables fitting into sports? And are we at that stage now where we can, I guess, head to the park with our friends and put on some glasses and watch a game really live in situ?
Well, you could do that now.
Yeah.
We have done. I mean, we did a demo. So we Nreal, or they're X-Real now, I think.
Yeah.
Great glasses, as close as you can get to doing that. And they've got the 6 degrees of freedoms in their top one, and there's great stuff you can do. But interestingly, if you are out, you can watch and have a game. And I think the key for some of these, the worst thing ever is you put on and this goes back to virtual rooms and metaverses. You go into a 3D environment or an augmented environment to watch a TV because you got a TV and it's probably a better resolution. So I think some of these things need to evolve. But one of I think our R&D guys did that was probably one of the best uses of augmented reality and would work as well in like a pass-through Vision Pro. So it was done on the MotoGP. Yeah. They had the main screen. And obviously, if we're in a room like this, that can be as big as you want because you just put it out. A visual representation of the track and the bikes going round. All of the other camera angles, so the helmet cams, and you clicked on one of the, you click on a rider and his helmet cam would come up. And that is where it goes exactly into what I was saying about that super fan and
the
casual fan.
Again.
Is, you can sit there, we can have a conversation. We're both watching the Grand Prix or MotoGP or anything really, but they're a great example. I just want the screen up there and you want everything around your room, but we can still talk and we can converse, but both of us is happy. And that's where I think, and all underlie of that personalization. What can you give somebody or a smaller segment? And I think that's where we're moving with technology, the ability to be able to cater for more people's tastes.
Taste. Taste is a thing that gets brought up quite a lot, especially in the technology scene, and how important it is to have people in that business that can find that and get out. And I think that, like you said, like with using the analogy of like sort of like AI being like your 1,000 interns, I think it's much quicker to find what that sort of taste is, I guess, from it. So
and cheaper to get it wrong. Especially cloud opportunities is being able to try something out, spin up some virtual machines, pay as you grow, all of these, and again that's where you're going to find the innovation from the people that are coming out, the new entrepreneurs. Is it's cheaper for them to try than it used to be.
No, exactly. We've covered quite a few things in this episode, and I think I'm sort of at the end now where I'm like, there's a couple of like burning questions I want to ask you, and like we can consider them like quick fire questions, but hey, don't feel free not to make them too short if you don't want to. But here's one: like, overhyped and underhyped. What do you think is like the most overhyped tech? Let's make it more about sports media. Actually, that probably make it a bit easier because we can go on for days about things that are overhyped. But what do you think is most overhyped and underhyped tech in sports media right now?
Overhyped 100% is NFTs.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And a lot of that comes from me. If I think it's overhyped because I don't get it for myself, but I do understand digital collectibles. Maybe it's overhyped in terms of you make money from it.
Right. Okay.
That's it. And if you want to have a digital collectible of it's just like we used to collect Panini stickers.
Yeah.
And so if you want to collect something that's digital, that's great. Don't think you're going to make millions That's the overhyped bit, is that you're going to get something that is rare, and then you're going to sell it to someone else's digital. That ship sailed.
Oh, a while ago.
Yeah.
For that one. What about underhyped? Like, what's not being talked about that much?
Oh,
That you think should?
I think it's grassroots and niche sports having, all the way that technology is democratizing broadcasting. You could throw up and my sons play a lot of sport, and now you'll get a pole with an automated camera on. You could connect that to 5G, or run a cable out. You've got cloud-based production. Someone needs to be putting in a platform for these niche where it's just a web interface to say, I want this, something the coach or the linesman can do. And then obviously you've got that ability to be able to stream and make it look really nice, like a full, a valuable multi-camera production, if you like, that you would have had to take. And interesting, and I don't think people get it, and I do talk about it at all, and you can take grassroots or you can take niche sports. They're the only ones that'll pay at the moment.
It's interesting, right? Do you think it's because at that grassroots level, they are so invested in their fans? That's probably... Yeah,
and you can take it down to... you can't watch. There's some stuff you can't watch. If my son used to be in the Bears Bristol Bears Academy for rugby, and you'd go and you could watch a little. Sometimes you'd be able to log on and watch it, but being able to put a professional spin on that, and then you take it down to, a grandparent would pay £20 to watch their 10-year-old play in a cup final of a minor children's league. And the same is, you look at some of, we talk about niche sport, but I guess it's just because we, as broadcasters, we're always talking about the big ones, but you could take table tennis, and I know they have quite a lot, and I'm struggling to think of what would be a niche sport. Well, mountain biking used to be, that type of thing, and you can get a really professional output, and those fans are so invested, as you say, are willing to pay for it, and I think it's a really undertapped market.
Yeah, I think
not from big broadcasters, from somebody.
Yeah, I think that's why Squash TV, when they first came out, they were so good, because like no one wants to watch squash at like 2 a.m. on some broadcast channel, do they? They want to watch it like whenever they want to. I think that's when they had that OTT platform come out. Right, here's one. Right, you get to start your career from scratch. Right, this is a 21-year-old Matt Stagg. All right, okay, you're starting career from the beginning. What space are you making a bet on? If it was, I think it would have to be looking at behavioural science and the interaction with sports and data, and moving into that personalisation, but not just. So it would be around data. Yeah. And we talk about it a lot, but there is so many things you can stitch up now. Some things, so you've got the data points on a player that could be used for analysis in the broadcast, the editorial. It can be used by coaching staff. It can be used by physios. And it's being able to provide a really good opportunity to use that data. So real data analysis, understanding, because I think that is untapped now. Do you think that's going to be a future? Do you think that's going to be a future like role in general across all industries, right?
Yes. Exactly. And that's that, but it doesn't sound really cool. So I think I'd still like to be a camera operator in Champions League, but You've worked for so many sort of brands in the past and some great businesses, and you've worked with some really, really interesting people. What would you say would be sort of that moment from your career that still teaches you something today? I'll be honest, it's all got to be based, and it's a very broad subject, but I can go back to, many things from when I first started as an apprentice is emotional intelligence and being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes or someone else's ideas, see people's point of view, listen when you want to talk. Yeah. And I talk a lot. Well, here we go. So I think that has always served me. And, it's not really, really sexy as in, oh, this technology is going to be great. But I really value that, and I value it in other people. Yeah. And it's remembered, and it will always help you in whatever you're doing, not just in your career, in your life. And people say, oh, you can't teach that. Well, you can. You can help people see the value in that, and companies are doing well. They are seeing the value in that, and you end up, and people used to just call it, oh, he's quite wise, but it's actually he's quite wise, and he's all right, and he's quite nice, and he gets along with people, and he understands, and I would say that has probably served me the best, rather than anything of understanding what the next big thing is, or seeing through, be able to commercial with technical. Yeah. I think it comes down to a base level.
Yeah. No, I think that's like sort of one thing that people brush over quite a lot, and I think that sort of listening and having that sort of emotional intelligence in business, it's so important, right? And I mean, look, I think we've spoken a lot today. It's been super, super interesting. We do have at Things Move Fast, although it's episode 1, guys. We do have a sort of final question that we ask everyone. So across any industry, so it doesn't necessarily have to be sports media, but just with the rate that everything's going right now, what sort of, innovation, technology has made you stop and go, oh shit, things are really moving fast?
It will be a while back,
yeah.
And we used to do a lot of mountain biking, and my mate turned up on an electric mountain bike, couldn't even comprehend it, and it was like, hold on, but we go and do downhill racing, and he went, yeah, we got to go uphill first. and that was, and I'd never seen one, and I was just like, you'll never need this until you got halfway riding up, you got off and pushed the bike, and he just pedaled up. So that was a things change fast moment for me.
Oh, 100%. I think, now my other half keeps on asking me, hey, you should get into like cycling and stuff. I said, what about like sort of motorized or assisted things? And she's like, no, that doesn't really work. But in that mountain biking scenario, I think it would work well. Yeah. Okay. Matt, thanks very much. Guys, thanks very much for tuning into the first episode of Things Move Fast. Like I said, we're going to be exploring loads of different industries and verticals, from media to sports to gaming. So please tune in for the next one. And if you aren't subscribed, please subscribe to the Substack and obviously to the YouTube channel as well. And I'll see you guys on the next one.